कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for this beautiful satsang on the fire element or the class. For me, everything is a satsang because we are in the process of understanding a greater part of ourselves, trying to live a more enriched life, a more empowered life, and draw that richness and empowerment from the spirit. And we are seeking ways and means to do that. So welcome. Let us begin the class with 3 Ohms. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. So in the last 3 classes, we have been exploring this powerful element within us as part of the Panchabhutas. This entire course that we have begun many moons ago now is learning the fundamental anatomy of ourselves. What does this body consist of? Essentially, and then of course you have the mind as well. And how is it related to the universe around us, to this planet? And in that understanding, we begin to explore consciousness as well. But without this basic understanding, nothing in yoga or Vedanta is actually possible. And by understanding, I don't mean simply an intellectual understanding, but the attempt here in these classes is to provide you practical ways of incorporating this knowledge as sadhana. Sadhana is practice. Sadhana is it's considered a spiritual practice, but essentially it means practice. So bringing it into everyday life as a practice, practicing to align our lifestyles, align our thoughts, our words, and our actions in tune with nature's principles, cosmic principles, and then begin to explore, right? So it is with that attitude and approach that we approach these subjects very reverentially as per our traditions. So in this class, in the last 3 classes, we have been studying the fire element. And I sought inspiration and guidance, and I continue to seek it from this beautiful place, a portal that is extremely powerful and beyond words, the experience there. Many of you have already visited that place, and if not, put it on your bucket list Sri Arunachala temple. And I have a small couple of videos, we'll share it in one of these classes, of the temple itself. We did see a video or two from the Arunachala mountain, but I did get a chance to spend a couple of days there. And so I visited the temple more than once. It's a very, very huge temple. So many places, so many corners, so many little Shakti Peeths, if you will, energy centers there, that you can sit and simply meditate to your heart's content and simply sit and absorb and enjoy and be blissful. So, offering my reverential pranams at the divine altar of this mighty consciousness that I adore as Shiva. Let's proceed with the class. So far, we have understood the fire element, and we understood what are the two sense organs, the Karmendriya and the Jnanendriya, the sense of action, which is the feet, and the sense of perception or cognition, which are the eyes. So you have the feet and the eyes. We explored all that. So here in the last class, we stopped, and I'm going to take it from where we stopped. External fire and internal fire. Let me get out of the way. So we talked about this external fire, internal fire, and this is the basis for why I'm presenting the idea of raw foods. Like I explained again in the last class, if some of you have just bumped into this class for the very first time, the idea is not just enough being a vegetarian. All right. Now, I'm not, like I said again in the last class, I'll repeat again, as far as meat and other products are concerned, animal products are concerned. Of course, bee wax or honey is something I consume. So it's not just, I'm not against all animal products. Milk I consume is from an animal. So those are things I consume and we consume. But I'm talking of meat, whether it is poultry meat, whether it is bird meat, whether it is fish, or whether it is seafood, or whether it is animals like sheep and goat and cow and things like that. I can't comment on that because I'm not eaten, so I can't comment on that. But it is my belief that our system is not designed to be a carnivore. And therefore, we with long intestinal tracts cannot hold food at 100 degrees temperature, especially things like meat that will rot in the stomach for even a few hours after food. So that's why there are so many negative implications, but I haven't experienced any because I've not had it, so I can't talk about it. So I will skip that, okay? So don't ask me questions with regard to is this meat good or that meat good and so on. But my point here is, being vegetarians, one has to eat things that are live. You have to eat something which is live. Now, this concept has a very different approach because I've introduced this concept earlier in the classes as well. The concept is prana. Prana as a source of all energies in your body. I know we talk about vitamins, science talks to us about proteins, carbohydrates, and minerals and all of that. All those are important nevertheless. I'm not slighting them at all, by no means. But I consider all of them as parts of a bigger puzzle. And the bigger puzzle, the bigger picture, the complete picture of all of these put together is something science has not put its finger on as yet. And since they haven't, they have not decided how to measure it. That is prana. Prana. That prana is life force. That prana is what we get from these elements. The earth in us and the earth around us gives us a prana. The water in us, the water around us gives us prana, life force. Now, in that prana, you'll say, okay, water has certain minerals and so on. Yes, earth gives us food, vegetables, and so on. Yes, so there is some prana there. So that prana that we get from earth, the prana that we get from water, these are the two important ones we consume through our mouth. And that's why food becomes an important thing. But then there is prana from the eyes that you take, the fire, the prana from the sun. We call that vitamin D. Vitamin D is a part of a bigger prana that you derive from the sun. Then you have prana from the wind. It's not just simply oxygen, there is prana that comes in. Oxygen is a vehicle that carries prana. So it is in this manner. And space, through space we get prana, but that prana is from sound. That is more subtle and more powerful. We'll talk about it when we come to space and all of that. So prana from all of these elements enter our body, and that prana is what keeps you healthy. That prana is what keeps you alive. That prana is what gives us longevity. That prana is what everything that happens in my body, right from a thought that is triggered to the blood flow and everything, the cause is prana. So the question is, how do I now get prana from water and earth and so on, right? So here in the fire element we are talking, because the fire element in your stomach is what digests the food, solid matter. We'll come to a fire for the mind and all in the next class. Hopefully I'll try and complete this today. So prana from plants, prana from vegetables, how do you get that? Now prana from animals, of course animals are alive, but you can't eat them live. So you kill them. So prana is gone there completely. So that's out of question. That's why I said meat is out of question. But vegetables are alive. Open your refrigerator, they are alive. You've frozen them, they are alive. You can buy them fresh in your market, they are alive. Okay. Freezing is a second option, but most of us do that because nowadays, you can't go to the market every day. So we made that choice. And so to some extent, for 2-3 days or so, you can keep vegetables fresh in your refrigerator. And the prana doesn't go down. So prana can be preserved. And vegetables are alive. How do you know they are alive? Because they are fresh. They don't smell bad, right? You can see them. You can dissect them, open them and see. There's nothing wrong, inside out of a vegetable. Now that life has to enter you. If that life is extinguished by that external fire that I was talking about, that external fire in this picture here, if the life is more or less extinguished, not completely extinguished, but more or less extinguished, then the digestive fire in your body has very little work. So that is why I set the basis with that in mind. So how do we get that prana into the system? Eat it raw, right? There are, of course, challenges. There are caveats for this. It's not very as simple as it sounds. Okay, they look good. Look at this. Look, like I said in the last class, we stopped here, I think, in the last class. Look at the colorful food, and somebody had commented food should be of rainbow colors. That's a good comment. That's exactly how it should be. Your plate should have rainbow colors, like bright, beautiful colors. And that color, the eye sees those colors. Eye is connected with fire. And when the eye sees different colors on the plate, the digestive fire is ready to digest that food. It prepares itself because the eye is communicated, that fire from the eye, the light here, communicates to the fire in your stomach. Okay, so that is where the connection is. That's why colors matter in food. Because colors, how do you perceive colors? Through the eyes. And eyes are connected with the fire element. So when you perceive color in your food, automatically your digestive fire wakes up, if you will, and is ready to digest. So let us explore the raw foods, and then we'll consider some pros and cons. I've received some questions, so we'll go with that. Okay. So here are, basically when we talk of raw foods, what it is, we are talking of vegetables. Okay. There are some you can't have raw, some you can eat raw and so on. Vegetables. Then you have fruits. Then you have nuts. Then you have seeds, grains and so on. So let's explore what all are the varieties of raw foods that we can have. So that you saw was a big platter of mixed vegetables and fruits. Then you have mixed nuts. Nuts, seeds and berries. I think that picture is sunflower seeds there. You have, in this part of the world, you get chia seeds, you get flax seeds, and so on. Now those can be powdered, and Maya makes some excellent laddus with them. So maybe we will share that as part of the KYG Kitchen recipe. with nuts and all those seeds because there's a lot of fiber. So nuts and berries are a good option. See, it's a question of for those of you who might say, oh, but we don't get all those berries here. There are always some kind of berries that are available in every country, in every part of the world. You don't have to look for strawberries in peak summer in India because they may not get it. But in the spring, there will be places in India where you can get strawberries. And you don't need to have strawberries. There are other berries. We call them bear, and there are so many types. There are some varieties available in Mumbai that may not be available in Calcutta and so on. But look around, you will find local berries that are grown, that are very easy to get. And those berries are amazing. The kind of immune system that you can develop on berries is powerful. Number one. Number two, they all have slow carbohydrates. They're loaded with good sugar that will give you enough energy, and you will not feel hungry at all. Trust me, even if you have a handful of berries. Of course, it's all a matter of training because your stomach, you see, your stomach is elastic basically in nature. So when you go on eating a lot of food 2 times a day, 3 times a day, and lots, then what happens? The stomach begins to extend, and then it stays extended, and it becomes droopy and extended. But when you start eating less, guess what? The stomach starts shrinking. When I say less, it is not simply blindly reducing food, but changing it to quality food. Then the brain is happy, the stomach is happy, but then you have to give time for the stomach to reduce and feel full at smaller quantities. When you have smaller quantities, your stomach should feel full. You can't force it. It is a matter of years of training, and I talk this from experience, right? So that is how we have to understand this. And so you don't have to have, when I say nuts, you don't have to have a whole cup of nuts, just a little handful, peanuts or ground nuts as we know it. That is a great addition too. So try and see if you can get nuts into your diet. I did use the word pepita seeds in the kitchen the other day. Pepita is actually pumpkin seeds. That is available almost everywhere. There are pumpkins. So that is an excellent way to cleanse your body, bringing fiber in, and it is used for detoxifying the body. So these are some of the things you can consider incorporating in your food. Then you have sprouted grains and legumes. These are all pictures of sprouted grains, just to give you an idea. So grains is an interesting concept here. We eat rice in the South, predominantly in South India, I mean. And as South Indians, those of us who are here in North America and other parts of the world continue that same habit simply because it's a habit, right? We don't question certain things, we just get into it. So we eat rice. We eat wheat. If you're in the north, we eat wheat. If I'm in Mumbai, you get to eat both. So I was raised eating both rice and chapati. When I came to Chennai, they said, oh, you're eating chapati at tiffin, you're eating for dinner. So they thought they have chapati as tiffin in the afternoon as a snack. So there are all these kind of cultural differences. But two important grains in India with which I was raised, and I can speak for myself, were rice and wheat. And other things came in, jawar and all for some special occasions and special dishes. Now, the argument is for many people is, oh, my grandfather ate this rice. Why can't I eat rice today? What is so bad about rice? Or my great grandfather and they all ancestors ate wheat. Why can't we eat wheat and rice? And the answer to that is yes, you can. But what is the caveat here? What is the catch here? The catch is we are not eating the kind of rice they ate. We are not eating the kind of wheat grains they ate. We are not getting those grains today. What you and I are getting in the supermarket when you go to buy are enriched. Enriched. When I say enriched, it's not a good word. I mean, unfortunately, it's used in the wrong context. So I have to, though I say enrich your mind, that's one of our motto, if you will, of KYG. It is not it is not used in the right context when it comes to grains. Enriched flour, here, what they do is they actually strip it of all fiber completely. Whenever you take a packet of rice or wheat or any grain and you look back, if it's a flour, look back, and if it says enriched, please put it back respectfully back on the shelf, because that devoid of fiber, whatever protein is there in the rice, most of it doesn't get absorbed in the body. It is completely stripped of complete, everything is stripped from that. The rice that you and I buy, we call it polished rice and all of that. Thanks to the green revolutions and thanks to all this mechanizations of farming, it became easier to do all this. Rice becomes very tasty because it's more sugary. The glycemic index of that kind of rice is 96. It's almost as high as a cup of ice cream. So that is why India and places that consume a lot of rice are considered diabetic capital of the world. So the argument is rice is not bad, but the rice that eventually reaches your door and my door and lands up in the kitchen and gets cooked is the rice which is devoid of all fiber, all nutrients, everything. Everything is stripped of it. Don't ask me why. That's how it is. And so because it's more sweetish, it's more easily digestible, it's more easily consumed, and you can make tasty varieties of dishes with it, the demand is more. So when the demand is more, obviously more marketers, manufacturers will get into it. So they buy from the farmers, they strip it all and they sell, and we got caught into a vortex. Okay, and we are spiraling down because we are caught into habit of eating rice and wheat predominantly. I had an interesting exchange of email with a person. He said, you talk about vegetables, but what is the main meal? I said, the main meal is vegetables. He said, no, but the vegetables is a side dish. I want to know what's the main meal. And I wrote, it took me a couple of emails to explain, wait a minute, there is no other main meal. The main meal is vegetables. If you do want to eat rice, you put that rice in a cup and keep it on the side. Change the proportion if you have to. Maya and I don't touch rice at all, not the kind of enriched flours that we have. So for a while, we switched to, in Tamil they call it kaikuttal arisi, hand pound rice. So that had a little more fiber than rice. So we transitioned from that to hand pound rice. Now hand pound rice cooking is apparently a challenge because the taste is not the same as that. It's a little more chewy in nature. And so people may like, may not like it. So, but it's a question of, it's not about what I like. Let this little thing inside the mouth not dictate what we should have. It is the health that you got to watch out, right? It is this fire, give it some work. So one has to watch about fiber. Now, let us relate that to Agni element. In the yagnas, in the sacrificial fire that we build in the temples, and we offer things into the fire, because all that ritual has a deeper inner significance of making every food that goes in as like an yagna, as you're offering to the fire outside, you're going to offer to the fire inside. Brahma arpanam, Brahma havihir, Brahma agno, the Agni is Brahman. So I'm offering the ghee that is also Brahman into the. What do you offer to that Vedic pit in the temples that you see? We offer things, and whenever they offer grains, they'll offer grains with husks in it, because husks will catch fire nicely and help the fire to burn. So to consider that, right? That is the kind of food that we need to get. We have very little fiber content today in the rice that we eat, the wheat that we eat. Another way, so that is one part of the picture. That's why we don't eat rice, and I don't recommend, and I recommend everyone watching this video to slowly move away and create a demand for another kind of rice. Somebody will start manufacturing it, right, with a little more fiber in it. But it's a hard sell because you have to change your taste buds for that. Now, that's one side of the picture. The other side is consider sprouting grains. Sprouting grains. When you sprout the grains, the digestibility and all the gas and other things that grains and beans have, they go away. And so when you sprout it, the prana element in that grain, in that seed, in that bean, if you will, becomes fourfold or tenfold, because now it is not a seed, it's a child, it's like it's a life growing out of it. So that life is just fresh life, not an old, right? It's absolutely new. Like I said earlier, even tender coconut water, you eat it tender, like when it's just forming, the water is not very sweet, it's almost like bland water, right? It won't have taste as much as a sweet coconut water, which is very ripe and ready to ripen into a full blown coconut. Now that has very little water, and that water is very sweet, so that water is not very healthy. You got to take um, water which is tender. So talking of coconut water, if you do get packaged coconut water and you find it sweet, why is that sweet? Because they have taken it from a very old coconuts. Even if they say it's organic and it's unfiltered and nothing is added and all of that, they are right. But even if they are right, they want to sell you sweet stuff. Otherwise, you're not going to buy their product. So what they will do, they will take the coconut which is towards the end of its life cycle, just when it's becoming a proper coconut, right? So towards the end, it is becoming what is called the vriddha, the old age. At old age, what prana you and I will have, our energy, strength, everything begins ebbing out, right? Same story is there with plants and fruits and everything. So towards the end, once they pass their prime, and they're leaning towards their old age, that time when you eat them, they're very sweet. That's why fruits have to be very carefully eaten, not when they are sweet, unfortunately, right? So, talking of coconut water, therefore, you ought to eat coconut water when it is on the rise, young. That's why they say young coconut. If you go to Trinidad, they'll say young coconut, young. I want a young coconut, tender coconut, and I should love that. Now that you can store in a bottle and keep it for a day or so in your refrigerator and have fresh, absolutely fresh from the vendor who chops off the coconut and he pours it and gives it to you. So that those are options available. And if you're in India, you're lucky because you can have that. When I was in Mysore doing yoga for 3 or 4 months, I just lived only on coconut water and nothing else, tender coconut water. So they are very very high in prana. Okay, so that's one thing. So if you're buying packaged, I'm not a big fan. I tried that; they're very sweet, and that sweetness is coming because it's already past its prana. So the prana is very less. Nevertheless, it's still better than Coca-Cola and all of that other junk thing that uh, is being marketed today, unfortunately. So what now? Where did we come? Why did we come here? We talked about the sprouting. So when a grain is sprouting, you're catching just as in its youngest age, right? When it is just coming out, right? They are full of prana. So sprout your grains and then bring it into a salad. Make it tasty. Put some chutney in it, a kotamili chutney or something. I always say kotamili chutney because that's my favorite. But coriander chutney, cilantro, coriander, that's what you call it in English. But so you put that in and you mix it, and then voila, you get a fantastic, tasty dish, a snack, if you will. Now in South India, South Indians, and I think Telugu also, Telugu people also, because these are two states I'm familiar with, Andhra and Tamil Nadu. They also call something called uh, in South especially they call it togel, right? Is that an English word for togel?
It's like a chutney.
It's like a chutney, I guess. So they make it with
Vegetables.
coconuts. You can have coconut and carrot in it. You can put all, anyway, I'm talking as if I can do this, but someday we will bring in all those little things that we can show them, not as separate dishes that you have, but you can use that to add to these things and make it more tasty. So those of you from the south and you are probably more familiar with all of this. So all of these chutneys are always very helpful. The only downside to that is you shouldn't put too much salt, and then you make it extremely high in sodium. So that's the downside to it. But make it fresh, have it, so you don't have to need that much salt for preserving it. 2 days or one day, and then you're done with it. So you can make chutneys out of that. So when you have these sprouts, coming back to sprouts, so when you want to have grains, have sprouted grains. Somebody asked me, can you share what do you eat every day, or what is your kind of food habits and things like that? Right now, what I have come down to is a very simple one meal a day package. And so it's very simple. Um, yesterday, for example, after the yoga class, I had nuts and berries, a bowl, and that was pretty much done for the whole day. I didn't eat anything. I had a glass of milk in the night before going to bed. Today was Hanuman yoga, so we did a lot of push-ups and squats. So I did have nuts and berries in the morning, but evening came, I felt hungry. So I'm not a person who will just stick to some, oh, I have to eat only one meal a day, not like that. So today I felt hungry. I felt very weak, and my body was asking for food. And I like my body to be asking. I like to get hungry and then eat, right? Not make up my mind what to eat. And so we had quote unquote sandwich. Okay, so now what is the sandwich we are talking about? Of course, everything is raw in between the two slices of bread. But again, what kind of bread? Because bread, maida is one of the things. Maida, what's the English name for maida?
Flour, enriched flour.
Enriched flours,
flour.
basically, white flour. White flour is maida. It's almost like poison, literally. Please, the most tastiest bhajis you make out of it, and in Trinidad they used to have something called doubles. It's maida. Everything in maida. Puri is made of maida. Maida enriched flour. If you're eating white bread, bread made of maida, please stop it. Because no amount of sadhana, no amount of yoga, no amount of exercise, nothing will bring you back to health, because you are completely dampening all those efforts of yours by just 2 or 3 slices of these white bread. Again, see how tasty they are. Why are they tasty? Because the glycemic index is very high. Very simple carbohydrates. The body absorbs and triglycerides go up. They stick to the walls of the intestines, and then they get dried. They stick to the walls of the intestines. They are not, there's no fiber, so they just stick, and then they don't come off so easily, because the rest of the food is not fibrous, so there's nothing scraping the walls of the intestines. So when the blood comes through the walls of the intestines through these extra food that is sticking to the walls of the intestine, and it's been sticking there for days, weeks. Just because you pass stools, don't think the intestines are completely clean. It's not, right? So when that happens, that's why there are advanced yoga practices called Shankha Prakshalana and all that. Someday we'll learn that slowly. So anyway, what happens here is, because of that, at 100 degrees temperature, that food is rotting there, stuck to the wall of the intestine. So when the blood absorbs the nutrients, guess what? All toxic wastes are being absorbed into your blood. So how much more, I know I'm painting a very gory picture, but how much more effort your body is putting up to fight just to keep yourself on barely on par alive. That's what is happening. So all the energy of this fire is going towards just fighting these demons and keeping you. Who's the cause? You are causing it, right? You can use that fire for so many other purposes, right? That's the point. Now, what kind of bread I eat? I just brought it here to show you this. Let me go full screen now here. Let me go full screen. So this is what we have been having now for the past 6-7 years or more, I would think. Now, this is the brand. I hope it's clear here. Okay, it's called Ezekiel, Ezekiel. This is from the Old Testament, the Old Bible, made exactly as it was prescribed. There's no flour that is used. See, it clearly says, somewhere here it says, no enriched flour, no flour. It's only flourless. It says right here, see on top it says flourless sprouted grain bread. It's only made out of sprouted grains. Only made out of sprouted grains. Is it tasty? Well, you have to acquire a taste. Obviously, it's not going to be as tasty as Italian breads and other white breads. It's not going to be. But it is so filling that one sandwich like this is all I needed to quell that hunger. So in between the slice, we put a good helping of butter and then raw vegetables like tomatoes and so on. And so our meal a day is predominantly one meal, and sometimes we add a sandwich or something. And that one meal, if I skip them, like on a weekend, I don't do any exercise as such in the morning, because we do throughout the week. And even if I do, weekend is kind of, I break the rhythm of the body purposely. so that the body is never goes into a plateau. So I skip breakfast and sometimes lunch also, and then so somewhere in the afternoon, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we have one meal which will be a nice bowl of salad or so. Um, Otherwise, sometimes if it's very very cold, Maya will make some dosa out of grains, again sprouted grains, and so on. So if you are from the south of India, you will know pesarattu is one uh, dish that they call it. It's green grams that they use to make dosas. Now those are kind of things which are relatively, you said, those are good options that are available. You can't eat that every day. Again, it's too much of that. You can't have, even though grains are good, you can't have that every day. You can't have sprouted grains too much. You got to eat that with caution, because it leads to a lot of gas, hard to digest, right? So there are these kind of things is how you got to consider, but you got to train your body, please, and I'll come to that in a bit. Now, the ratio of vegetables to fruits should be 20% of your total intake. Vegetables should be 80% of your total intake. Okay, this is very important to understand, because you say, oh, I live on fruits and vegetables, and you consume fruits, there's too much of fructose that goes into your body. They are good fructose, they're not artificially produced, that's good sugar, but yet, unless you're a very active person, you don't need that kind. If I have berries, then that in that way I satisfy my body for want of fruits and all the benefits of that fruits through these berries. If I don't have the berries, then I have a banana. So I keep switching. Some days I'll have berries, some days I'll say, okay, I want to skip these berries, I'm going to take a banana. Because bananas, when you buy, they don't last a whole week, and we don't get to buy it every day in America. I have to go to a store and buy it. So, and these days going to a store has become a weekend thing, especially with COVID-19 and all of that, right? So what happens when you buy it, 3 or 4, and that gets over in 2 days, because you have to have bananas when the bananas are half ripe, because once they are ripe, they cross the middle age. So half ripe, there has to be a greenish tinge in the banana, not fully yellow. So you got to eat them there at that point. So I can't have too many and stock them, because they get ripe fast. Same thing with all fruits, right? So you have to be careful of fruits. Nevertheless, having said that, your total food, 20% should be fruits, 80% should be vegetables. Okay, it's very important. And nuts also, it goes into that 20%. Just because nuts are good, you can't just keep on nibbling on them, because they are also hard to digest. And even, there's a saying in India, right? Even amrit or nectar will become poison if consumed too much. So it's a common sense principle. So just a handful of nuts, it's just handful, literally a handful of nuts is all that you need. A mixed bag of nuts is all that you need. Even if it's peanuts, a handful is what you need to put. So that is something you got to consider. Then we come to spices. We have covered the spices in the taste already, in the water element. So I'm not going too much into that. But there are some good oils that you could consider for cooking those vegetables which you cannot eat raw, right? That's again common sense. What are the vegetables you cannot eat raw? All potatoes and radish and all that kind of things. They cannot have too much of that raw. You have to cook. Some of the vegetables are better consumed when juiced or cooked. I prefer juicing, but sometimes, like I said, if it's in peak winter, we just rather cook it and have something warm than juice it and again have something cold. So juicing also helps. What are those? There are certain vegetables like carrot, for example. If you bite into a carrot, we say carrot is good. It's got high beta carotene. It's good for the eyes. All right. But if you bite a carrot and eat one carrot a day, 95% of that is not digested by the body. It is just shunned away. Body cannot digest it. You cannot tax it suddenly with that. Okay. So what do? You take that carrot and you juice it with the pulp and everything. You juice the whole thing, and then because you're already breaking down the physical structure of the vegetable, you make it easy for the body to digest. If you cannot juice it with the pulp and all of that, then what do? You cook the carrot. You cook the carrot and then you take it. Then the body absorbs, right? So there are certain exceptions to why we need to cook. Certain things you can't have raw, you have to cook. Now when it comes to cooking, therefore, what oils are considered healthy? Again, I'm only talking these from personal experience. I don't claim any dietic expertise and all of that. I know there's MD, alternative medicine. Nobody teaches you these kind of diets. Everybody goes by the book. Everybody is broadly influenced by the modern approach to a food triangle, food pyramid, and all of that. None of that has really helped much. Okay, because you miss the whole important thing of prana. So I go back to traditions, and there are two oils that I would really recommend for you. One is sesame oil and the other one is coconut oil. Before we go any further, I have to mention they have to be cold pressed oil. And ideally you get it, what do you call that? It's not refined in heat, right? It's just like you have a hand pound rice. These are actually cold pressed. So how do they do this cold pressing? Is in when I was young, they used to send me to get this. So I will go to the shop, and there will be a big bull that is going around with a stick. And many of you from my generation will relate to this. And that bull is crushing these seeds and actually making oil. So in towns like Kanchipuram in the south, I've witnessed this. In towns like Coimbatore in the south of India. And there are places in India where you get this. They don't look great. They are brownish in color and all that. But that's the oil. That's the oil directly from, you buy a bag of sesame seeds, give it to them, and they get oil out of that and give it to you right in front of your eyes. Now, that's in India, right? It's not practical. But you do get today organic, cold pressed sesame oil in the market, in Amazon, and so on and so forth. For those of you who cannot go there. What's that?
Unrefined and cold pressed.
Unrefined, yes. Unrefined and cold pressed. Now that as the entire satya, the essence of the fat that your body needs comes from oil and milk. So oil is a very important consideration. Why? For the fire element, you need oil. Oil is fuel for fire. In other words, fat is important for health. But you might say, but isn't the modern science telling you don't eat fat? What are you telling us to eat fat? Don't want we put on weight? I'm on a weight reducing diet, and why are you telling me to eat fat? Fat, when you eat fat like ghee, when you eat fat like butter, again, not enormous amounts, just 2-3 spoonfuls, or when you have good fat like these oils, when there is good fat coming to you from the nuts that you eat, along with proteins and other things, when the fat comes in, that fat is good fat, and that is not going to make you put on weight. What makes you put on weight is sugar. The sugar from rice, the glycemic index from rice is what is making you heavy, fat, slothy, and more of earth element begins to happen because of that. So it's carbohydrates that rises the insulin and so on, content in the body, and so on and so forth, finally ends up being triglycerides and all of that, not the fat. Now, after many years, somewhere in the 60s and 70s, this whole thing, this fat thing came, and people started moving away from fat things. And so in India also, everybody gave up eating butter and this and that, and they started moving towards something else. And now it's coming back to a full cycle back. Modern medicine is saying, wait a minute, that fat is not causing you cholesterol. Cholesterol is not caused by fat, it's caused by sugary products and so on. So now, what happened to that 50 years? How many generations have been sacrificed in that? Go back to our stories. Why did the Puranas tell us Krishna loved butter? Why do you think they wanted you to eat butter? The mistake we do is we put sugar in the butter and have it. We make sweets. Say Krishna liked sweets. Krishna liked only butter. He liked only cream. He didn't put sugar in the butter and cream. He ate it right raw from the pot and he licked his fingers. Eat cream like that. Eat butter like that. Bring that butter. Encourage your children to eat that. Butter slows down the insulin rush in your food. Ghee slows down the insulin rush in your food. So on the one hand, if you're having hand pound rice, which itself is good, it's going to take time to digest. So the insulin is not rushed in because the sugar is not released instantly for the pancreas to begin a war in your body. Because all this is now fire is trying to put off, right? This is what's happening inside. But we are trying to understand this from a scientific perspective. So along with your hand pound rice, you put a spoonful of nice ghee on it. When you have ghee and rice, ghee being fat helps to slow down the process of absorption of the sugar, and therefore the insulin rise won't happen. Now I'm not talking this for diabetic people. Please follow your doctor's advice. These are general common sense things. This is why if you go back to what our grandfathers ate and our ancestors ate and how they lived so long, and healthy in spite of the lack of modern medicine. And that counts. Somebody also wrote to me or commented, I'm not sure, they said, because I said last time that we haven't really improved lifespan. And one person said, no, 1900s the lifespan was 40 years and now we are 70 years, so we have actually improved lifespan. Yes, in the last 100 years, yes. But I'm not talking of 100 years. We are talking of 500 years, 800 years ago and longer, much beyond that. So there, when you go back, way back in history in India is lost almost into mythology, right? Because it goes back thousands of years. It's the oldest country, perhaps. The oldest civilizations have existed in India and parts of China. So when you go back there, those habits still have survived in our traditions. You got to look for that. Those habits are eating fat, cooking with good oil, especially sesame oil and coconut oil. When we buy these fried stuff in the market, when we buy these packages, when you look at the oil, they'll say sunflower oil, they'll say vegetable oil. All those are highly refined oils cooked in high heat. So the molecules itself of oils have changed and they become very, very harmful to the body. Those are not the oils that we consume. In Kerala, they will eat fried chips. They fry it in oil and they eat it and they are healthy. And it is healthy. Banana chips fried in coconut oil. Fresh. How? Because coconut oil and sesame oil the molecules in them do not change at very high degrees of temperature. Consider coconut. Coconut is the product of the sun, right? You find coconut trees where? In tropical places. So it's directly absorbing Agni in it. It's got Agni. So it is not going to change just because you heat up. It can withstand high temperatures without changing its molecular structure inside. Its molecular structure is intact. Right? So then when you cut banana chips and you fry it in coconut oil and when you eat it, it's actually healthy. It's a different matter that these people might use that same oil again and again for weeks and that's why it becomes unhealthy. All that is other practices. I'm talking of the pure concept of coconut oil being used is a very good thing. So consider that, right? Coconut oil is good for the skin, for dry skin. Talking of skin, sesame oil is a very, very good oil for fire. Now in South India, and these are all practices that existed for thousands of years, right? In every temple, obviously you can't put ghee in the lamp. Many reasons why you don't put ghee. You do put ghee once in a while in the lamp, but ghee, in other words, the fat that you get from milk tends to solidify in room temperatures. So when you put a lamp, it's very likely that the ghee solidifies and the lamp won't burn continuously. So ghee is not considered ideal except in very small quantities, right? So I understand the same principle in us also. So ghee is good doesn't mean you take tons of ghee. Just 1 or 2 teaspoons of ghee is good for the fire in your stomach. It is very good for acidity and so on because it will help calm that and bring the flames down to control. Now, sesame oil is used to light lamps. Sesame oil is used to light lamps. So sesame oil in South India, in the Siddha medicine, again a very old, powerful system of medicine, sesame oil is called Nalla Enna, the good oil. They don't use words lightly. Nalla Enna, good oil. The good oil means it's a really good oil, good for the heart, good for the body, good for overall strength and vitality and everything. We consume predominantly, the oil that we consume, Maya and I consume, is sesame oil. So now there are tips for the sesame oil. Now before going to bed, because a feet is connected with the eyes and both of them are connected with the fire, and because sesame oil is used for fire as fuel for the fire, this is what I do. I take a drop of oil, like there's a bottle, we just tip the bottle, and on the tip of my finger a little bit of oil. I rub it on the sole of my feet, and then take my thumb and rub it nicely in, because I don't want it to grease the bed. Very small, little, okay? Don't try to pour it. And I might make a small video and show you also. It's a very simple thing. Just touch the oil, rub it on your sole of your feet, and rub it in nicely. Try it on your children and get them into that habit. That is an excellent way to provide heat from the feet to come into the stomach, and the food gets digested well. And in the long run, these are all habits you just put in place and forget about it. Just say, okay, this is something I'm doing, because these are all preventive in nature, not to cure any things. That in the long run will help in slowing your eyesight as well. Okay, in other words, your eyes will stay clear and bright, and you'll be able to use the eyes for other mudras and so on and so forth. The health of the eyes is maintained. Again, fire, both are connected. So sesame oil, one practice. The other practice of sesame oil, which I've been doing thanks to a friend's suggestion, I used to do it in Puttaparthi and then I completely forgot about it, is first thing in the morning, I take a spoonful or 2 spoonfuls, because I have a small bottle, I just glug it and I take it into my mouth, 2 or 3 spoonfuls of sesame oil, and I keep it in my mouth as I do my morning ablutions and so on. So that stays in my mouth for about 10-15 minutes or so. I gargle it, not gargle it, I swirl it in my mouth, if you will, correct. I swirl it, and then once I'm done, I spit it out. And then of course you brush your teeth, and also you're not supposed to consume that, you spit it out. That not only, because digestion begins from here, and there are more than 300 kinds of bacteria that are mouth stores and at any given point in time. And when you brush your teeth, all the 300 bacteria are not taken care of. You can ask this to any dentist, he'll tell you that, right? So the best that we can come up with is brushing the teeth, because there's nothing better than that or so. But then this practice is much better. In addition, because you have to brush your teeth after this, right? So you remove the oil. But then what happens is, first of all, bad breath and all of that is completely gone. Then all those bacteria, everything, the mouth gets clean. And that mouth, the digestive system begins from here, right? So that in turn helps the digestive fire. These are some very, very good habits you can consider bringing in. Yeah?
Oil pulling.
Yeah, it's called oil pulling. You can read about it. Again, if you do too much research, you're going to get pros and cons. But I've done this now continuously now. At least I've revived it, and I'm not going to stop it. It's been over 3 years now that I've been doing it, or 2 years at least that I've been doing it. And it's really, really paid me very rich dividends. So all of this is connected to the fire element. Okay, and I think this topic is very interesting, because food somehow seems to be the centerpiece of our discussions. So we always sit and discuss too much about food. But once you understand this, then you can take it from here and come up with your own ways of incorporating healthy habits of food. So here's there's a 2 pictures of sesame oil and coconut oil that you can use for various purposes. You can also consume coconut oil, but I've not heard, I've read people doing oil pulling with coconut oil, but because I come from the South India maybe, but the Siddha medicine, the Siddha school talks about oil pulling done with only sesame oil. Okay. Now, there is a link between this and astrology and Vedic planets and the Vedanta and planets, Vedic astrology and planets, because sesame oil is linked to Saturn. Saturn is the prodigy of the sun. Sun represents fire. So the other side. So the entire planetary circle is maintained because all the other planets that we know of in this solar galaxy is between the sun and Saturn. Sesame oil is linked with Saturn energy. So Saturn stands for longevity. And someday when we study Vedic astrology, we'll see how logical that is. But at this point, just understand that there has to be a logical connection. Our ancestors who built such marvelous temples and architecture, who knew where Saturn was, they didn't cook up something out of the blue. Saturn energy is concerned with longevity, among other things. And so sesame oil is connected with Saturn. Why? Because sesame oil, if you consume regularly, will give you longevity and good health in any form. Try keeping that. I told you the idea of frying. It sounded great, but keep that to maybe one occasion a year or something. Don't get into that. Because we don't have the right resources at home inside our kitchens to do that, unless you live in Kerala and so on, where you can go into a yard and get fresh coconuts, get fresh coconut oil and do all of that very fresh. Unless you're in that kind of environment, please don't try frying on your own. Keep that to very minimal. But having said that, please include oil in your diet, sesame oil and coconut oil. And of course, finally, if you are having medications and illnesses, please take everything that I have said with a grain of salt, a pinch of salt, if you will. Consult your physician. Please do not take these and say, okay, I'm going to jump into doing this. Also, for those of you who are trying raw salads, don't jump into raw foods right away. You have to train the body. Why? Because of this next. And let me complete this. It's common sense here. Bloating sensation, abdominal pain, gas, acid reflux. I've got these questions in my emails between last week and now. These are very common symptoms when you jump into raw foods. I've been there, done that, right? So because some of them are very nutrient dense, broccoli, for example, is not a great vegetable to have. I have one piece of broccoli, one piece, just one. When you see pictures on the table, it's so much broccoli and all, you can't have that, especially raw. You can't, because it fills your stomach. You'll feel bloated sensation, there will be pain, there will be cramps and so on. So take it very easy. Be very careful when you eat these vegetables raw. Cabbage, again, very, very little, less than a handful. I had this much cabbage because my body can't take more than that. I just feel very bloated. So cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. Again, cauliflower is best cooked. So when you can't eat this raw and you somehow like it and love it, then you blanch it, steam it, cook it, juice it, do that way. And still have less and introduce your body slowly to it. This is all tied with activity as well. Your feet also has to generate the fire. So if you are doing exercises and keeping your feet active, then the fire is strong enough to digest this, right? But you can't jump straight away and expect the body to say, oh, I'm trying raw foods and the last 3 months I've just been having solid stomach aches. And of course it is. You can't just jump into that, right? So consider that. Some people even have problems with tomatoes. That's why I said tomatoes can also be juiced better. Sometimes it's better cooked because the lycopene in the tomato is very good for health. But then that's sometimes better absorbed in some bodies when it is cooked and not raw. So you have to use common sense here, right? For me, tomatoes have not created any problems. I love tomatoes. I love mint as well, but I don't eat that much mint that it can cause gas. We just use it just to put it on top whenever there is season and we get. And then onions and garlics also are two vegetables. When you eat raw, you have to have them very, very limited. I know in so many other classes and in some other contexts I've also mentioned about onions and garlics being good. Yes, they are good, but you got to eat them in limited quantity, not too much. because they contain a particular, see, all of them contain some kind of cellulose, which is very difficult for the body to digest. You can read about these and you'll find them all over. And there's so many papers written on this now. So the body by nature finds it difficult to digest. So you got to introduce it slowly, just like you introduce a child to solid foods slowly and not suddenly begin it. In the same way, you have to introduce your body to raw foods. If you have already passed your prime, if you're past 25 years of age and you're introducing food, introduce it slowly, because 25 years of eating one way cannot be changed overnight. So consider if you're 40, if you're 50. Nevertheless, make the change, but make it step by step. Be very patient. Say, put a goal like a year from now or 2 years from now, I will be having systematically 3 solid salad meals a day. One of my main meals will be completely replaced by a salad bowl 3 times a week. So if you put that for a year from now, slowly you begin, go back and forth, slowly, and it'll take a year or so for the body to get, then you get set into that. And then you can make it every day and so on and so forth. Again, slowly, one step at a time. It's taken Maya and I many years to come to where we were, but we never gave up, constantly kept trying. And then we do this. So when we enter a grocery store, we just go to the periphery. We never go into these aisles, very rarely, because you buy the vegetables, milk, and come off. Everything inside is all chips and things which you really don't need. All right, onions and garlic. Then beans and grains. If they are not sprouted, then it's better you cook them, because when you sprout them, that gas element gets reduced a lot. But again, you have to introduce it slowly. Sprouted grains also introduce little by little into your diet. Even these breads, you can't put a tasty chutney and have 3-4 slices. I would suggest just 2 to start with, because it's very filling. Okay. So these are some of the things that you got to keep in mind. And then I've already talked about grains like wheat and rice. Quinoa is expensive. It's available in limited quantities, so you don't have to go out of your way to get quinoa. But quinoa, if it's available in your area, quinoa is a much better option, because it is a little more fiber content than rice and wheat. But then my fear is, again, because of increased demand, because of more manufacturers coming in, there'll be more of enrichment and so on and so forth, because each one is trying to make his product or her product tastier than the other. And so read a lot, read the labels, and see if there's any word like enriched in that label, put it away. Okay. And then comes the last question, I think, for the day, and we'll end the class with that, is what's the best way to hydrate? I would say water. Water is the best way to hydrate. Squeeze a little bit of lemon in it, or store some lemon in the water, cut some lemon and put it in the water, and then the smell of lemon will add flavor, and the taste of lemon will add flavor to the water. So water is the best way. You don't need, if you're eating raw foods and fruits, you don't need that much water. You don't certainly need 8 glasses of water a day. But again, it depends on each one's constitution. I think 8 glasses is a bit too much. You don't want to overwork your kidneys as well and tire them out. So it's good to flush the kidneys. It's good to break your fast with a glass of water, a glass of warm water. Some people put honey and lime in it. That's a great way to break your fast, because the first thing that goes into your body goes into the kidneys. It flushes the whole system. So it's a great way to break your fast. Listen to your body. Listen to your body. I like to eat my water. So when I eat vegetables, I eat my fruits, it's like irrigation, slow water seeping into my body, and I feel very less requirement for actually drinking glasses of water as such. Tea and coffee, I drink both. So I'm not going to tell you that it is bad, because it has not really been bad for me. I don't put sugar and all that. We don't touch at all. Sugar. I don't touch sugar. So I don't drink tea and coffee with sugar. We put a spot of milk, literally a spot of milk, because I like the taste of that bitterness in the coffee. But again, I listen to my body. Like today after Hanuman Yoga, after intense workout, I didn't feel like having coffee. So I didn't. I just had a glass of milk, and that is all it was. So I listened to my body and then go with it. When does things become bad? Tea and coffee is when people drink 4 5 cups a day and drink it with a lot of sugar. Then you are increasing the acidic content in your food very high, and so the body works hard to bring down that acidic content. So you have to watch out about that. So anything beyond a limit, don't don't take it too far out. I like milk. I like milk products. We both have milk. We both have yogurt, and so we are not vegans per se. We do buy organic, grass-fed. We do make sure that these are milk that doesn't contain, do not contain any of those
Hormones.
growth hormones and things like that that they give the cows. So that's the best we can do, right? I mean, beyond that, unfortunately, we don't live in. This is when I really miss India, where you can actually go. I don't know if it's there possible these days, but in smaller towns, relatively like in Kanchipuram, where my in-laws live, we can actually go and get fresh milk from the cow, and then we can come and use it. So those kind of things I think are still a great gift for those of you who have access to that kind of farm. Please do take advantage of that. But for others, we have to trust the carton and trust the companies. And today there are strict laws about it. So I believe that what I'm consuming is good. Now, am I against veganism and all of that? I don't want to get into that. We tried being vegans for about 2 3 years. We did that. We didn't touch milk products, but I missed it. My whole system was aching for that. And so I realized this is not, at least in this lifetime, I can't be a vegan. And so I switched and I came back to eating milk. And I found many vegans were eating a lot of sugar. They gave up milk products, animal products, but they're eating a lot of sugar. So it really doesn't mean because you're a vegan, you're healthy. Because you can be a strict vegan, but you can have a lot of sweet in your diet, and that can counter, right? So make your choices. Ultimately, come back to this fire element. How am I going to maintain prana? How can I bring prana into my body? Live things. How can I bring in fruits? Very good way. But how much fruits can I have? Not too much, right? Therefore, how can I bring fresh vegetables, green leafy vegetables, spinach vegetables? You can blanch them. You can heat them in hot water, and then you can consume them. So I think we have covered the food aspect of it. I want to go to Agni for the mind and talk about kriyas and beautiful practices that are available. But still, if you have any questions, please do write to me, and we'll try and see how to address those. So hopefully this class was useful. Thank you for your patience. Let's end this class with one Om and three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti